So contrary to how modern man looks at this concept, we're like, oh, power corrupts, right? It's bullshit. We need ownership in order to feel inspired to overcome ourselves, to live for something larger. And the more that feminism rises, like put man in his place, and the more that the world makes it harder and harder to own land, and the more that the world alienates us from shared social bonds and feeling like we have a stake.
Welcome to the channel, my fit and geeky people. So yeah, just before we jump into the video, please subscribe, leave a like, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. So yeah, the question is, what are the problems in society? Because for me, I think a few people come up with either poverty, racism, discrimination, and so on and so forth. But the video I'm reacting to today is, the problem with society is most men don't own anything. So they don't give up. Yeah. And this is made by a creator called Wisdom Warriors. So yeah, we're just going to jump into it, see what his thoughts are. Why is this? Why does he see this as a problem of society?
Okay, team. Today I want to talk about why men are going their own way. Why a lot of men are abandoning their families or abandoning trying to date or relationships. Why community is failing and patriotism or shared social bonds are getting destroyed. It comes down to ownership. Now, I might be canceled for this video, but hear me out. If a man doesn't feel ownership in the land, in his family, in his tribe or village, he will not be inspired to accept responsibility for that thing. For instance,
so he touches on an important point there. If a man doesn't feel responsible for something, he just won't care. And I'm trying. Is he right? I think to a certain extent, yes. But let's let him explain a bit further.
if I was starting a business and I wanted someone to be an A player for me, someone to be high up in the business, to be a great leader, to really help the business flourish, what would I do? I would give them a ownership role. I would give them a share of the company, right? It's the same thing in society. If you want participants, really good citizens, if you want men to overcome their lower nature and rise to truly masculine and beautiful men and leaders, you need to give them ownership.
Okay. Actually, I do agree with him, because this is more of a personal experience where I left my old job because I was there for a couple of years, built myself up, and I just want to move to the next level. And probably some of you have probably experienced this in your lives before, where you literally you're confident enough to go to the same level, and they're just not giving it to you. And you start feeling like, you know what, just don't care about the company anymore. The responsibility, you don't have any responsibility to the company anymore, because you're trying to give more to it, but they don't want to give anything back to you by promotion or even a salary advancement. Yeah, so I think in that wavelength, he is right.
Else, they're going to say fuck it. So the main impulse within most men is towards freedom. We don't want to be tied down to all of these obligations and responsibilities to our village, to the nation, to our job, to our family. Like, we just want to wander freely, right? A lot of men do. And society and cultures in the ancient world coped with this will towards freedom within men by offering them ownership, by offering them authority. And this ownership is what created citizens. And this is really important. This is what my last video is about. Bear with me if you're feeling triggered. Citizenship is when you own a long-term stake within a larger project, right? So let's say you're in a village, okay? And you own a piece of land in that village. And your kids are probably going to inherit that piece of land. And on top of that, you feel like you have great ownership of your family. You're more of the patriarch of your family. Therefore, how are you going to treat your family and how are you going to treat the land? A lot of modern people will be like, oh, he's going to abuse them and all these things. It's like, no, that's the exception to the rule. The main rule would be you would try to see that whole thing flourish. A father generally wants to see the best for their kids. A father who owns the land is going to pass it down generations, wants to see the best of that land, is probably going to build it up in some way. And on top of that, you are going to want the best for your community. You're going to go and participate in governance. You're going to try to be a good citizen to your neighbors. You're going to build community and build relationships because it's meaningful to you, because you have a long-term stake in the whole, right? When you take away the man's role at the head of the family, or you take away the man's role in terms of private land ownership, right? You take away his sense of having a long-term stake in something. Therefore, his nurturing, he doesn't feel inspired to take responsibility for it because it has less meaning for him, okay? Now, I'm not trying to advocate for, maybe outdated and roles of masculinity. I'm just trying to paint a picture of human nature for people out there. Is that when people feel like they have ownership in something, they're going to take...
That is true. I mean, if you guys know a car guy, a car guy looks after his car. Some of you girls have boyfriends who have cars. And some of you guys who are watching this probably have cars. And you probably saved enough to buy that sports car or supercar, whatever that you've always dreamed about. And you own it. I know people say yeah, if you don't pay tax, you kind of, but it's a bit different to property. But a car is a good analogy for this. If a man has his dream car and he owns it, he's gonna really look after it. I think that's sort of the point he's trying to put across.
Responsibility in that thing because it has meaning for them. And let's talk about this politically and geopolitically in terms of democracy versus monarchy. Man, we're going heretical in this video, aren't we? Drop a like if you like this kind of content. So, the Middle Ages saw a lot of monarchies, kingdoms, and aristocracies, right? And there's been a massive wave of propaganda in the past 100 years from liberal democracy saying that the Middle Ages were all dark and kings were these conniving, greedy, fat fools who were just in it for themselves. And this is not true. You can go see Thinking West, a YouTuber's video on this. But the monarchies of the past, in general, tended to be okay, if not good. Of course, there's bad kings and bad ones, just like there's bad men, okay? But in that, the patriarch, the monarch, the king, he feels ownership for his entire kingdom, meaning that he is thinking generations ahead because he wants his kingdom to thrive. He's not going to overtax the peasants because he wants them to be more productive, to have better lives, so they multiply and increase the will to power of the entire kingdom. You see, the main instinct of life is to increase the feeling of power in life. And this is a very Nietzschean philosophy. And the feeling of power has nothing to do with control. It has everything to do with vitality, an increased feeling of life and expansiveness here on earth, a mastery of open space. And so the king is going to be thinking, a good king is thinking generations ahead. He's trying to, how can my people, be more productive and live happier lives so they multiply and increase the power of the nation, right? And he's thinking this way because he wants to pass down this kingdom to his children, who he also feels to be a part of himself, right? Therefore, he has all of this meaning to lead well, to lead his family well, to lead his tribe well, to lead his kingdom well. Contrast that with a president. A president is in office for 4 to 8 years, and it's a popularity vote to get him in there. And therefore, he's not thinking generations ahead. He is thinking, how can I gain popularity in the next 4 years so that people will reelect me, right?
Wow. Okay, let me finish this.
What's he going to do? He's going to drive the nation like a rental and make decisions that might be good in the short term but are detrimental in the long term. It's kind of like if you rent a property versus you own the property. If you own the property, you're going to...
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, I've never had this sort of explanation of like a monarchy being a better structure than a democracy. But damn, how do you oppose his opinion on this? Because it is so. If you think of it like, I'll use another analogy. Yeah. Think of someone who starts up a company, probably starts the company when he's in his early 20s, builds up the company to probably like over 100 employees in like 30, 40 years. These men tend to be in that company and working for that company till they're like a bit older. They go past retirement because they just don't want to. I mean, in a way, they still don't want to leave it because it's pretty much their property. And also, they tend to bring up their kids to also take over and become generation. The company, some of the companies that have been around for like over 100 year plus tend to have that sort of like structure where someone started and they've given it to their kids and grandkids and great grandkids and it passes on. But if you have like shareholders who just come into the company, board members, they're there for massive maximum profit, the quickest they can get it, and they're out. Directors' life cycles are now like 4 or 5 years, probably even less sometimes in a company. And that's sort of how I'll understand the difference between a monarchy and a democracy. Yeah.
Cultivate the land. You're gonna cultivate relationships. You're gonna help it blossom, and you're gonna think really far into the future, generations ahead. If you rent the land, you're not gonna give a fuck. Okay, you're not gonna give a shit about making it better. Oh, I'm only gonna be here for 4 years. I'm gonna drive it like a rental. I'm gonna abuse this. I'm gonna pump money into the economy. I'm gonna exploit the land as much as possible to, gain prestige for myself and maybe short-term gain for the whole, but to the long-term detriment. It's kind of like using pesticides on the soil. It's going to destroy the soil health for short-term gain, right? And so it's really important, I think, for like revolutionary men and for more traditional men who are going their own way out here, is to think about the concept of ownership outside of political lines, outside of party lines. And that's the thing, is like, I'm not trying to subscribe to any dogma. I'm trying to think freely about how to create a flourishing humanity, right? So don't put me in any of your boxes out here. But what I am saying is that ownership of his life, the more responsibility he's going to take, the more empowered he's going to become as a man, and the better man he's going to become. Like, it's so contrary to how modern man looks at this concept. We're like, oh, power corrupts, right? It's bullshit. We need ownership in order to feel inspired to overcome ourselves, to live for something larger. And the more that feminism rises, like, put man in his place, and the more that the world makes it harder and harder to own land, and the more that the world alienates us from shared social bonds and feeling like we have a stake in the future of our village and our tribe and our nation, we're just going to go our own way. And like, a lot of men are going to fall into their lowest nature, their most petty nature, because they don't have the meaning to overcome themselves for a larger project. And this is tragic. So it really comes down to ownership. A lot of people talk about this, and it sounds bad. The man should own his family. In a sense, he should. Like he should lead as a wise and loving father, take his wife's input and her wants and needs into account like any good leader would. This is a round.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and that's probably why there's been a rise of MGTOW, men go their own way, red pill, all that. It's just this sense of like, and that's why like channels like, what's it called, Fresh and Fit have grown so much, the Manosphere, wherever, they've grown so much. Because men as a whole, men as a whole, they just feel like they just need some sort of ownership. It's like now our grandparents used to own land. I live in the UK. I'm not even from the UK, but I grew up in Africa, where my grandparents, my father, they all own land. But for me, To go back there and on land? Are you mad? I can't even fathom that being possible right now. And they had a massive more sense of responsibility to the community, not just to themselves, but just the community as a whole. And yeah, you can see all these like red pill spaces rising up, and they're trying to fill up that void, but they're not really solving the issues, the core issues. It's becoming more of like make money fast, sleep with a lot of women. It's just not intrinsic values, is it? Instead of just being responsible for your community. I think that's something that we're slowly just losing.
Table. But at the end of the day, you got to feel like you have authority, that you are the leader, right? That you have a say in your in your government, that you have a say in your family, that you have a stake in your community. A little passionate rant there out in the forest, huh? Sometimes I go off. My name's Christian.
Yeah.
I'm trying to spread awareness about modernity versus the ancient world, and try to start men towards a new path of banding together and creating a more traditional yet forward-thinking type of community where we can thrive again. This channel is in service to high culture. Thank you for watching. You can click the link in the description below if you want to talk to me one-on-one or join my men's community where we have accountability circles, we have philosophy circles, and it's so much fun going deep with other brothers like yourself. So come talk to me one-on-one if that interests you. If not, go watch this video about citizenship. I'll see you over there. Peace.
Wow. It's such an insightful video. I mean, there are certain words they probably say, like ownership, like owning his family and stuff, which would trigger some people, but I don't even know why. Why is that triggering word? Because ownership doesn't mean like dictatorship and like subjugation to the other people. Ownership is pretty much ownership equals responsibility. So the man will be responsible for his community, society, his family. And yeah, I mean, I find it interesting, and the perspective of how you explain the monarchy and democracy, how one could have been better than the other. History is gonna show us that. Yeah, I find this insightful. I'd love to see some discussions down in the comments, and I'll also leave a link to the original video. Go support him. Go view. I'll probably try and watch some of his videos, see what he's on about. And yeah, if you like the video, please leave a like and also subscribe. Till next time, peace.